Pierre, you're a real estate expert, can really understand how it's going to affect us here financially. First off, the governor just basically acquiesced. I don't agree with him in a lot of things, but since he's going to fight against President Trump, I'll be for him. It makes no sense.
It makes zero sense. And the problem is that you're having local politicians more fixated on the White House and the issues that we have in our state and city. So for Hochul to have that as such a factor in backing him, and the irony is, Brian, that he didn't reciprocate and back her for a re-election.
He did not endorse her.
Hysterical, right? I mean, karma, and it's well deserved. But the mere fact that that's the impetus for why you're backing him, you should be backing the mayor because you believe they're going to be great for the greatest city on the planet. That's why you should be backing the mayor, because you believe in them. That we're riddled with issues in this city. For that to be the predominant reason you're backing him is absolutely ridiculous.
All right, here's Mandami when asked about endorsing Hochul.
Are you supporting Hochul for re-election? And if so, are you worried that her supporting you is actually going to hurt her among swing voters next year?
You know, I tease you about being an immigrant father, about asking me about the thing beyond the thing. My focus is on November, and I'm excited to have the governor's support in that fight for November as we make it clear that we can put the days of City Hall and Albany being at war in the past.
Right. What the hell did that mean? I'm an immigrant father. I look forward to November. I am not endorsing Governor Hochul. Why? Because the person primarying her is to the left, the lieutenant governor. And that's what he is, way to the left. So Gillibrand, nothing. Schumer, nothing. Hakeem Jeffries, nothing. Why? Because they understand your job. Your jobs are going to be affected. Have they already been affected with people projecting what it's going to be like with him as mayor?
You know, I wouldn't say they've been affected just yet, but everybody, the level of anxiety is an all-time high. And you're seeing this because right now, you know, unfortunately, the radical left has gone from socialism to communism. This guy's a communist. You know, like, let's just put it out there. He's a flat-out communist.
He doesn't like capitalism.
He doesn't like capitalism, doesn't like the police. I don't know how he thinks he's going to work with the billionaires, which he claims. He doesn't believe billionaires should exist, but I'm going to work with the billionaires to help improve the city. It's completely illogical and belligerent. Now, the problem is socialism is a seventh grade experiment, right? In seventh grade class, we take social studies and we talk about socialism. You don't apply socialism to the most important city in the world. You just don't do that. This city is based on the hardest working people. It's based on capitalism. It's based on fruits of your labor. You come here, every immigrant came to New York City in the 70s and 80s. They worked their butts off. I'm a prime example of that. My parents were immigrants that came here in the 70s. They worked tremendously hard and gave me a phenomenal opportunity. And that's the American dream. And that's the beauty of New York City. This place is a melting pot. It's not a place for having a socialist regime. And I joke and I call it democratic communism, right? There is a democratic communist. So I just think that this is, I am befuddled how New Yorkers could actually be supporting this. And I'm praying that people go out there and vote in November and the younger generation doesn't dominate the election and get this guy in power.
So if someone says, by the way, can you tell the audience where you made your name in real estate? Like what do you buy? Where have you found your success?
So I co-founded a law firm in 2011 when I was about 30 years old, a real estate law firm. I'm a real estate attorney. I've been doing this for 20 years. I partnered up with my dear friend, Michael Romer, and we started a business as two attorneys, two kids that, you know, were dumb enough not to know what we didn't know. And we worked tremendously hard. We worked tirelessly for the last 14 years and built one of the largest real estate practices in America. Today, we're sitting about 28 attorneys, close to 50 people total. We're annually ranked in the top 5 in New York City based on volume of real estate transactions handled in the city. And our practice expanded nationally. And it's a great story to the testament of hard work and the fruits and benefits of capitalism.
Commercial or residential?
Both.
And what do you think, for example, how's the market right now? The president knows and everyone acknowledges, Republicans and Democrats, that it seems like the housing market's frozen. We watched the chairman of the Fed come out and say, we don't have enough houses. So what do you think?
I mean, you look at the stats in the last 2 years, you had back-to-back years of 30-year low in transaction volume in the housing market in America. So it's a crisis. It's not a problem. It's a flat out crisis because I always say majority of Americans, they buy a home. Buying a home is an American dream, right? Buying a home is their predominant way for your average American to build wealth in their lives. The barrier to entry is so high right now that it is completely impossible for your average American to afford a home. You had home prices go up over 50% during the pandemic until today. You've had now mortgage rates triple. Low rates fueled a lot of the appreciation of the housing market and a lot of the demand. Now these rates, it's who's transacting? The affluent, right? So if you really care about income inequality and the divide in society, why don't you help bring down rates to help the affordability issue, to help your average American build some wealth? Because if you don't do that, what's the future going to look like for these people? It's not a bright future.
So how do you jar the market? How do you rattle the market in a positive way? So you said if Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, middle class America, they just say it's time for me to buy my first house or move to a bigger house. They walked into the bank right now and they have a great credit rating. What kind of interest rate could they expect to pay?
I mean, right now the 30-year fix was in the low sixes yesterday, which is again a 3-year low, and that's a testament to rates coming down. You know, the Fed funds rate doesn't directly impact mortgage rates. It's more tied to the 10-year Treasury, but it does have an indirect, correlation between the two. And you saw that yesterday, Brian. Like you saw a quarter-point reduction by the Fed, which is really nominal in reality. That brought down mortgage rates to a 3-year low. We need to get those rates down. Like if they're in the 6% range, it's not enough. Like you need a 100 basis point reduction to improve affordability.
And they said there'll be another one in December and then another one maybe earlier in the year. Would that be the type of schedule that you entrepreneurs, you real estate people will be liking?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would have liked to seen 50 basis points yesterday. I wasn't holding my breath because, inflation's not where they want it to be. And quite frankly,
they're worried about the labor market.
They're worried about the labor market, which is not good, right? But Jerome Powell's scared of his own shadow. He's not going to take any aggressive move that could increase inflation. But you're right. The impetus for this was the poor labor stats. But if you have a world where you can get to a rate environment of 4.5% to 5%,
right,
you improve employment. Stock market's at a record high. Every day breaks another record high. That's 3 factors: lowering debt service, increasing employment and job stability, and record highs of liquidity. That's a perfect storm for the housing market, right? That will help free up inventory. That'll get people off the sidelines. That will help people transact again. The problem is the competition. That's my fear, is that your average American's competing with affluent second home buyers and investors. You have to help create federal programs that create development in supply limited to first-time home buyer demographic and certain income demographics to help these people not have to compete against conglomerates.
Well, that's so interesting because someone, I think it's Blackstone or BlackRock, that keeps buying up all these houses.
They all are.
They both are.
All of Wall Street.
So they're buying neighborhoods, they're redoing the houses, and they're selling them. They're in control of them, but it wipes out me selling my house, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you're going in and you're saying, okay, I have 10% to put down, I need to get a mortgage for 90%, I'm going to live with a 5.5% interest rate, and then all of a sudden an institutional bank comes in and says, okay, we'll pay 5% above this guy, we'll pay cash. Who are you going with? They've acquired millions of homes. I mean, I do
you think that there should be some type of federal law against that?
I think that they should be forced to sell all the homes that they bought within the next 2 years.
Do you think it's unethical?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think housing should be considered
You wouldn't
a
do
commodity.
that?
No,
and you could.
Absolutely. I do not think housing, especially for your average American, if they're buying homes $300,000-$400,000,
and you're only letting me lease them. So if I go to a Blackstone or BlackRock home and I go in there and I like to buy, they go, no, we're not looking for you to buy. You can rent.
We want to get an ROI on you every single day, and we're going to have our price homes appreciate on an annual basis. I say, do you want to live in a world in 10 years from now when everybody's renting a home from Goldman Sachs? That's not the society we want to create. So I definitely do think, I mean, look, I'm all for capitalism. Within reason, right? I do think that you have an existential crisis when it comes to housing if this is not addressed now. It needs to be addressed today. If you have reasonable regulation that limits Wall Street's ability to acquire single-family homes, and you free up and you allow the American people to have the ability to enter the market, I think that's phenomenal for society and something that's beyond reasonable.
So, okay, you're in New York City where the real estate's the most expensive in the country, perhaps, per capita, but there's people listening to us right now around the country who want maybe want a house worth maybe $300,000 or $500,000 home, but they don't exist. Would you be for Kamala Harris talked about this, we're for building 200,000 homes with this type of government. Should the government play a role in any way, whether it's tax breaks or actual investment in some building of homes to give people an opportunity to get that house?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote a great op-ed on this, basically talking about government programs to incentivize developers to develop housing for the medium income level in their
What kind of incentivize developers?
Tax breaks. That's it. Waive half of capital gains for that demographic, and then have deed restrictions. So my theory was that if you incentivize developers saying, okay, instead of selling to an institution, instead of building, say the average median price of a home in that neighborhood, take any neighborhood, is $450,000. Don't go build $1 million home. Go build $450,000 homes, and we'll cut half your gains tax bill if you do that. and in conjunction, put a deed restriction that whoever buys this home has to be a primary occupant for the next 20 years. So that way you can't have somebody going in there and flipping these properties and taking advantage of these programs. So you solidify the stability that this house can only be owned by a primary occupant for 2 decades. You provide a developer with a significant tax break to incentivize them to do this. And furthermore, I think that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae should be offering preferential programs and loan products to borrowers below certain income levels.
Right. I thought that is their mandate.
They do an incredible job of supporting affordable housing. Their initiative of affordable housing is great. It could be better. We can improve.
Got it. So we have this mayor comes in and says, I'm going to freeze the rents because I think New Yorkers got to be affordable for all New Yorkers. Now play this out. Play out this.
So if you freeze rents, now where are you going to have anybody have the desire to invest $1 in New York City in terms of development of properties? I'm not talking about single townhouses, co-ops, or condos. I mean, apartment buildings. You've already created dilapidated housing. Brian, we have about 100,000 units of rent-stabilized properties that are not on the market. They're just sitting there vacant and completely dilapidated because the economics don't make sense for the landlords to put them out on the market at the horrifically low rents that the city's requiring them to put them out on. It makes no sense. The landlord's saving money by keeping them empty. If you had Can
you back up a second?
Yeah.
So you're saying right now there are buildings out there with empty apartments.
That's right.
Why would you keep that? Why is it better for them financially to keep those apartments empty?
Because it could be a rent of like $600.
Okay.
And $600 a month does not cover the cost or the landlord of operating that apartment. You have to improve it, right? You have to improve the property. That's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, right? You have to pay electric on it. You have to pay utilities. I mean, insurance. It doesn't make sense
and
financially.
we're already dealing with this now. Before he gets in,
That's
these
right.
rent freezes.
Well, this is a ripple effect of, like I always say, we've already had a socialist mayor in New York City. Let's make no joke about it. Bill de Blasio was a raging socialist, and we had 8 years of this, and I'm still baffled today how he got elected twice. He created this mess by changing the rent regulations in 2019. It was the most sweeping change in rent regs we've had in New York City history. And what it did is that it completely disincentivized landlords to improve properties because they could never get an ROI on the improvement given how the city changed the amortization of the rent increases in conjunction with improvement. Now, this guy comes in and freezes rents, right? The problem is it's going to take whatever issue you have today and compound it by 10. So think about it this way, right? I always say to create 100,000 affordable housing units, how long will that take? That'll take a long time. How many buildings do you have to build to get 100,000 units? You can free it up in a year or 2 years if you change this regulatory environment to something that actually makes sense. But if you have this communist coming in and he comes in and he compounds the problem by saying, you know what, this isn't enough. I'm going to freeze rents, right? Which is really all false nonsense to go garner votes with all of the free stuff he's promising people that has no reality of actually happening. I'm going to go freeze rents. Then, okay, fine. Number one, you just took the value of these buildings from already declined by 50%. You've completely started the valuation of them. Completely started the valuation. You've disincentivized every developer and investor of properties in America for wanting to put $1 in New York City. And then what happens? Actually, I was in one of your Fox News articles talking about how this is actually intentional. It's destruction by design. Though they want to bring down the value to peanuts, to pennies on the dollar, so the government can acquire these properties and create socialized housing. That's his goal. He refers to the Vienna model. He's had interviews about this before he was running, but his goal is to create socialized housing. The way to do it is to take over these buildings. The only way the government can take over these buildings is by destroying the valuation. Wow. So that's why I say it's communist and absolute Marxist rhetoric.
And anything that we could do to stop it is going to work in everyone's behalf, not Democrats or Republicans. Republicans, you got Curtis Lee, we're still fighting it out. Adams in single digits, and Cuomo still 20 points down. But people should understand exactly what we're buying into. Pierre Debbas, thanks so much for your expertise. We'll look forward to talking to you along the way.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a long sprint to November.